What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA Show, powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/All-NBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler, who's down in Dallas. He caught the Lakers on Monday. He's going to get the other end of that trade. Well, kind of. He calls the Mavericks hosting the Warriors tonight. Legs, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm curious. I'm just my first foray into my kingdom tonight. I'm going into my kingdom, and it's not the kingdom. The kingdom is in a state of uprising right now. So I might have to be the guy to come in and calm everybody down. But I don't know if I'm necessarily in that mindset to do it.
There's people that are on the internet. There's just haters, people that want to just make the bad comment or negative comment or whatever. I saw one the other day that says, you could tell Tim Legler hates Luka Doncic. And I thought, you know what? If somebody will say that, they'll say anything. They're going to say, I
didn't see that one, man. I mean, my goodness. That's why, sometimes you get, certain things can rile you up, but you really got to keep it in perspective, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think someone's going to tell me I don't like Jokic too soon here. Like, what can you do? Today's show is a little bit of a different one. We did the playback last night. Thanks to everybody who joined both on YouTube and over on playback.tv/All-NBA show. I thought it was really cool. Will Perdue hopped in. We had a couple other guests pop in, watched some games. We saw a really good finish in Philadelphia, which we'll talk about a little bit on today's show. But because there weren't that many great games last night, we're going to do a couple other big topics and bounce around the NBA, including talking about, now that Luka Doncic has been traded, who's the next big star player that could be on the move? We'll get to that as well as our shout outs. But we're going to start in Phoenix, where Kevin Durant became the 8th player to reach 30,000 points in his career. But Legs, it was bittersweet as the Suns lose yet again, this time dropping below 500 for the first time, I believe, all season, at least in quite a while. The Grizzlies get the win 119-112. What's your takeaway from this game?
I think the first thing I want to say is, sometimes you'll hear a stat or hear a number, and in this case, Kevin Durant goes over 30,000, and we clap for it, and that's great. I don't think you understand the historical perspective and significance until I was watching SportsCenter after the game, and they put the graphic up on there, and they listed the 8 guys, and then when you see it like that, and you're like, in the history of this league, only 8 guys have reached that number. You start seeing LeBron and Kareem, Karl Malone, Kobe, Jordan, Dirk, Wilt Chamberlain, Kevin Durant. That's it. Shaq didn't even get there. Curry, the next on the list, I think, are Westbrook, who probably won't get there. Curry probably will, because he'll probably stick around long enough. Believe it or not, DeMar DeRozan is 61 points behind Steph Curry. Does that surprise you?
Who is?
DeMar DeRozan.
I mean, he's a natural scorer, but yes, that is surprising. In my mind,
he did it in 100. He played 115 more games than Curry or something like that. But he's crazy. Bottom line is he's probably going to get. Look, that's another 6,000 points. But my point is, that's the first thing I want to say. Yeah. Just congratulations to Kevin Durant. He's been one of the great players in this league, one of the most entertaining players in this league, one of my favorite players to watch throughout his career. So that's the first thing I want to say. When you start seeing the names on the list and you're like, my goodness, these are the only guys that have ever done this. It's incredible to join that group. So first of all, congratulations to him. But then you get into their team. And the bottom line is, man, it's just, there is something really missing with the group and the sense of fight and toughness. They're kind of a soft group, and they lose another game. They've now lost 6 out of 7, 7 out of 9. And it's very difficult to watch them and take them serious about you don't want to play the Suns, 7-game series, even with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal on the team. It's just, there's something about them that just feels a little bit listless and lifeless. And, unfortunately, you saw it for them again. They just can't maximize their talent to put the maximum amount of pressure on you where you go, okay, they're not going to be great defensively, but they're so good offensively that they can still win a lot of games and be a threat in the playoffs. They just haven't put it all together. And that's one of the reasons Kevin Durant's name was coming up so much before the trade deadline. Was this hasn't gelled. It hasn't worked. Bradley Beal didn't want to waive his no trade, so he was going to stay. So you're going to go forward with this. Well, then maybe we move Durant. And there were some conversations had, but he's still there. And now it's going to kind of be the same old with this team most nights.
Well, the story for me for the Phoenix side, I mean, in addition to them just on the slide, but Nick Richards, who was their big, we got to get rid of Yusuf Nurkic. We got to get a real center in here. They bring in Nick Richards. He basically gets benched in this game. 16 minutes, has 6 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, was a -8. Bol ends up getting 30 minutes. I mean, just to show you how desperate, like there's the scale of desperation. And the farthest end of that scale is we got to give Bol 30 minutes, see what he could do. And he played great. He's actually had some interesting games lately. He had 18 points and 14 rebounds. But, that's one of the storylines is get Nick Richards. Like, hey, we got to find a center that we could play. And we're only 2-3 weeks into this. And already it's like, yeah, that's not the answer. So for me, I look at Phoenix and I go, they've pulled a bunch of levers trying to make this work and they've all failed.
Well, look, you remember the first lever they pulled when they were like, listen, we're going to bring Bradley Beal off the bench because, and you know what, and who, what was their, and Nurkic. And their response to that was, we're going to start Ryan Dunn. We're going to start Plumlee. And that first game was in like Philly, and Bradley Beal played great. And those guys played pretty well as starters. Ryan Dunn last night came off the bench, played 5 minutes. Mason Plumlee came off the bench, played 7 minutes. Nurkic isn't even there anymore. So it's like it's still all built around Durant and Booker. This team took 44 threes last night. They made 12, and ironically, they took 44 threes. And you know who led them in the most number of threes? Bol took 10. Royce O'Neal took 10. Too. Yeah, it's just like to your point. I think that's a good point. They're kind of it's on the daily. It's like trying to constantly change and figure this thing out on the fly. When teams start doing that, it shows you that they really are lost in a lot of ways. And that's kind of how it feels for the Suns.
Yeah. On the other side, though, the Grizzlies continue to impress, 36-17, holding that number 2 spot. I don't know what more you could say. This game is kind of just how they keep winning them. You get a good performance from John Morant, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., of course, and then just nice, solid contributions from all their other guys. So they keep rolling. I don't know. Quick word on the Grizzlies.
Yeah, look, we like them. And so, it's just the West is going to be interesting. It's Oklahoma City and everybody else. And right now, Memphis has every reason to say, hey, you know what? We're going to be the last team standing against OKC. Like somebody's going to have to take down that team. And I've seen them enough to say, man, I'm impressed. I do have some questions about their like late game execution and what they would do, and would they be smart enough to handle those kind of moments? I feel the same way about Houston in late game situations. I think that's probably where there are problems. What the answer is for Denver, and that's why I think Denver is probably the most likely candidate to be that team. But yeah, man, give Memphis credit. They've played really well all year, and they've had guys in and out of the lineup. They've been shorthanded a lot of nights, but they consistently play hard, and they have consistently have different role players step up on given nights.
Well, speaking of late game execution, the Raptors get the win over the 76ers. This is a game we watched together on playback last night. It was a good finish in terms of it was, went down to the wire. But the late game execution from the 76ers was rough. Tyrese Maxey was just 1 of 9 in this game. Overall had 5 points. He hit a shot late, but then had a shot to try to tie it at the end and missed that one. But late in this one, we saw Embiid, who was outside most of the game. He started to take it to the basket for a stretch there at the beginning of clutch time, but late in clutch time, hesitated on an open 3, turns it over. This was just a comedy of errors on the 76ers part in a game that kind of felt like a must win. Every game is, but this one in particular at home. What did you take away from the late game portion of this one?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they come in, they lost 3 straight. So you look at Toronto on your schedule at home, you lost 3 straight. There's a must win. And look at the things that happened for them not to get a win. Number one, Scotty Barnes kind of goes off against them, which,
he was great. He was great.
Yeah, he was sensational in this game. But look, again, this is another team shorthanded against the Sixers. No RJ Barrett. Like that's 20 points of offense. You're missing that, right? So this is a must win for me in my mind with Philly. And so Tyrese Maxey over the last 10 games is averaging 34 points a game. Yeah, so of course he would get shut out completely until 4 minutes left in the game. He goes 0 for 6, wasn't even getting looks. Finally, hits a 3 late, but he goes 1 for 9 in the game. on a night when it's like we got to win this game. At least we know we got Maxey rolling coming in. He goes 1 for 9. Embiid 1 for 5 on the night from the 3. So when he got that ball late and I'm not exaggerating, he had 15 to 20 feet of open space in front of him when he caught the ball at the top of the key for a 3-pointer. And I know probably what flashed through his mind, man. I get criticized all the time because I take too many threes. I've already gone 1 for 5 in the game to that point. So I'm going to drive it into the lane, into traffic, even though I've got all this space. Now, I think maybe that's a good decision, but he could have stopped at 15 feet and shot a shot that he makes like 70% of the time when he's open, that pull-up mid-range 15-footer. Instead, for some reason, he takes it too deep into the lane. He actually tries to go between his legs in the lane, in traffic, loses the ball. Toronto gets a breakaway. Game. And it was pretty much game, set, match. So they really did not execute down the stretch. They had, again, on a night when you just need to get a win, inexplicably, Tyrese Maxey has one of these nights when he's been incredible, really the whole season, but especially the last month. He does nothing offensively, and so now here you go. You're extended your losing streak to 4 games, and they just got beat by Milwaukee without Giannis on a national TV game that I thought was really just a totally passionless performance. And now you go home against a bad team, shorthanded. You've got all your guys, and you still lose.
Yeah.
Sixers in a tough spot, man. It's getting harder and harder every day to make a case that watch out for them, man. They could be dangerous. That conversation right now for me is a little far reached.
2 things. One, Joel Embiid just clearly doesn't look healthy. I mean, he doesn't have there's nothing spry about him right now. He had some nice drives. I mean, we liked what he was doing there to start the fourth quarter, but wasn't able to sustain it. But he just doesn't look healthy or confident. I mean, the confidence part of this is a big part of it. And I don't mean confident in his skill. He doesn't look confident in his ability to do the things that he's done in his career. And I think that's some of where the hesitation comes. But the bigger thing to me is, the point of an 82-game season, and you probably don't need 82 games, but you do need some consistent stretch of 30 games or so to really figure out what you do in every scenario. If a team is going to take away Maxey, how do we leverage that to our advantage? Okay, they're overextending there, so we punish them over here. Or they front you on this side, and we have this action built in that we naturally kind of get to because we know how to play. And last night, Maxey only getting the shots that he got, all of them forced. That to me, and just the way you watched them play, that to me is a team that has no chemistry in that way, hasn't built that, hasn't gone through the struggle. So now if you take Maxey away, there's no punishment for it. Like, what do we do now that they overextend there that we can, really make them pay? And they just didn't seem to know what to do because they haven't played together enough. And now here we are getting ready to go in the All-Star break. You look at the standings. They are 20-33, somehow still in the play. They're only a game and a half out of the play. And so that's why you can't give up on the team, because it's so easy to get up to that 10 seed. But just to be at a 0 on the chemistry scale at this late into the season, I just don't even know if there's enough runway for you to develop that if you started and had the rest of the season fully healthy to get there.
Totally agree. I mean, it's look, they're going to be a team. Listen, if they don't make the play-in, I mean, you talk about and assuming that Maxey Embiid, look, I don't know about Embiid. I shouldn't even say healthy because he's not healthy. You're 100% right. And even on the plays he did play well last night, we talked about a couple of those drives in the fourth quarter where he took advantage of his skills. They had no answer for that. But one of those, he lays the ball in and it forces Toronto to call timeout. And like Joel Embiid just is everything about his aura and his body language. And it's probably because he doesn't feel right and he's frustrated. But like he lays it in, force the other team to call timeout. You're on a little bit of a run and you call time, and he just goes to the bench and like shoulders down, sits down, doesn't really talk to anybody. And it's just like, it's just joyless right now. And look, when you're losing, underperforming, I guess you expect that. Nick Nurse looks stressed out. Like they're going to make the play-in. If they don't make the play-in over the Chicago Bulls, I mean, I don't even know what else you say, especially if, even if Embiid is limited, if those guys at least play every night, how in the world could you expect Chicago to make the play-in? Sixers don't. Philly gets in, who knows what that looks like, but this has the feel of either losing the 9-10 game and you're done, or losing to the loser of the 7-8 and you're done. It doesn't feel like you pull off a couple of wins, you get to 6, and then you go battle the Knicks in the first round. It doesn't feel like that's how this is going to go for the Sixers.
So now, we hear the rumors that are not even rumors. I mean, they've kind of come out and said it, that Embiid likely needs a surgery. And, you got to get to an off season and rehab that. And surgery will probably linger into next season and this or that. And part of the calculus you have to make is, do we want to push for it this year? Is there a world where the recommendation from the team, and I'm sure Joel would have to accept this, but is there a world where the recommendation is, well, we're not going anywhere this year. Let's get the surgery started now. So maybe we only have to miss the summer and be ready for the start of next season. Is that a risk? Like, you never want to give up on a season when you have a chance, but is it worth it in your opinion, if that was an option, to get started early on the surgery to get back so you can be ready for next season?
For me, yes, and I rarely would say something like that. In this case, yeah, because that's not what typically happens. Embiid will be out there playing on 1.5 legs, gutting it out, trying to give you what he has, but playing a game that on most nights offensively that is completely beneficial to the defense, because he's not spending a lot of time in the lane. He's not posting up really at all. He's basically become a perimeter player. His defense is to me, that's even a bigger concern. Like, the lack of presence defensively, the lack of ground he covers. He had some plays last night. Action came right at him, and he was the backline defender, and he barely moved, much less, really covered ground, got off the floor and protected the rim. He just can't do those things. But, he's going to want to play because he's missed so much time that he's going to think, I don't want to go out again and, blow off the rest of the season, and I'm going to get hammered for that. So I'll come out and play, but I'll get hammered for that because I'm playing unhealthy. But that's what he's probably going to do. And then you know what happens? Yeah. They even delay the surgeries a lot of times for some reason. Like, I've always wondered that. Like, guys don't get that taken care of the day after the season ends. So you're ready by camp. But that's not what guys do, man. Oh, no, man, I don't do that right now. Like, it's been a long year. I need some time, to go whatever, because you got to rehab from that. And so, they end up putting it off till the middle of the summer. Now you're not ready when camp starts. Now you missed the first 15 games. It's just, this has been like an MO with a lot of guys and off-season stuff. But to answer your question, yeah, they're not going anywhere this year. They'll get run off the floor against the Cavaliers or the Celtics. So just, and probably the Knicks. So just go ahead, get it done now. Let the guy recover while the season's going on. He's got another March, April, 2 months of regular season basketball to rehab it. Now he'll be ready to go when camp starts. Now, look, something else might happen next year. Who knows? But that probably is the best course of action instead of what you're about to see, which is, I think, him play on one leg most nights. And that's going to be a bad look for him. And it's going to be very difficult for their team to win.
And by the way, when you mention Cavs, Celtics, or Knicks, if they make the playoffs, 100%, that's who they would play. They're not getting above that. Nobody is passing those teams so that that's who you'd match up in the first round. They definitely, in a best case scenario, would have to match up with one of those three teams. So I'm with you. Going over to the Lakers now. They needed a center and they found one. Alex Len. They signed him to a deal, and he will be their center now. So you have Jackson Hayes and Alex Len. Do you like this fit for the Lakers? You were at the game. You saw a lot. You talked to a lot of people. But do you like that fit for what we know about what Luka wants?
Yeah, I do. I think Alex Len's really smart. Alex Len could play. He's got some game. I like Alex Len's game. They needed to do something. The Mark Williams things fell apart, and we'll see how that plays out, because Charlotte is protesting that, and they're trying to get the league to look into that, whatever went on with his medicals, because they clearly, the Lakers saw something that Charlotte didn't expect to see. And it created a lot of awkwardness, even looking at Dalton Connect on Monday, just standing there in the sweats and like just looking lost and like not engaging with his teammates very much, didn't smile once the entire game. Like, it's weird for them. It's weird for Charlotte now, but Charlotte's still fighting it. We'll see how it plays out. They need to do something. You can't just roll with Jackson Hayes only. Now, I do think, having said that, I do think you're going to see the Lakers go to this smaller lineup sometimes where you have the three perimeter players, including Austin Reeves, and then you've got Hachimura, Dorian Finney-Smith, and then in some cases Vanderbilt, who, believe it or not, is pretty incredible. Vanderbilt is their second leading rebounder now after Anthony Davis left, okay? His rebounds per minute is significantly better than even the guy that's leading the league in rebounds, Sabonis. Jared Vanderbilt averages 6.5 rebounds a game in 15 minutes. So there's going to be times when he's that other guy, right? And then he can't shoot at all, so the spacing's not great, but he can rebound and he can guard. anyway, some combination of those 6 guys. And I think what that does, it helps Luka, because Luka then is not asked to go guard some perimeter player that can break him down. Like you put Luka on there with that team, Luka can play 4s that aren't real threats, that are more spot up guys. And so I think that you're going to see JJ experiment with that and thinking that, hey man, yeah, it's not ideal defensively maybe, but guess what? That's going to be a nightmare for you to guard on the other end of the floor. With 3 playmakers like Luka, LeBron, and Austin Reeves, it might not be enough shooting with those guys. With Hachimura and Dorian Finney-Smith Hachimura's been great this year, really, honestly. He's in a real groove right now. But is that enough shooting with that lineup? Like, I'm not sure, but I do think that's what the Lakers are going to do some of. But you had to address, in case you don't want to do that, who is your other big? Because they don't have anybody. I guess Koloko and Jemison weren't enough for JJ to trust them. So you went out and you got another big. And I think it's good move for Len, and it's going to be good for the Lakers.
I think when you look at Boston, a lot of what makes Boston really good, because they play 5-out basketball. Number one, everybody can attack closeouts and dribble drive, beat their man off the dribble. You have 5 guys that can do that. You have 5 guys that can shoot. You have 5 guys that can defend. This Lakers version is going to be better than Boston, in my opinion, at the dribble drive part, just because LeBron and Luka, they're 2 of the best in the league in terms of you just have to get around your guy, everything's spread out and you have to get around. Nobody's better than Luka. You have to send the double on him. LeBron's great. Austin Reeves is great. So they're as good, if not better, in my opinion, at the dribble drive part. But the shooting is a huge question from the guys you mentioned. And the defense is a huge question. I mean, a large part of what makes Boston awesome with that small ball lineup is they can guard you at an elite level. We'll see if that small ball lineup can do that. I think they're banking on the fact that Luka and LeBron are just going to be too much and score every time, and see which team blanks first in the playoffs. I don't know. But Alex Len, to me, doesn't move the needle. I don't know if he's going to be the lob threat that, Luka really needs to play with. We'll see. But they had to do something, and that was their move. Knicks beat the Pacers. We watched this one yesterday too. Not that interesting of a game in terms of intrigue, right? This one was always 10 points, and then they pull away late. But do you have any notes here? Because these are 2 teams that can match up in a postseason, 2 of the best teams in the East. What do you make of this one? And Indiana, by the way.
Yeah, Indiana, they've been red hot. I think going into Saturday's game against the Lakers, that inexplicable loss when Lakers sat everybody and except Austin Reeves, and he torched them for 45 points and went up 20 in the first quarter. It was like, didn't make any sense. Indiana had been 19-6 in the last 25 prior to that game. So they've been on a roll, but this is the kind of game, like the Knicks, Karl Anthony Towns was amazing. He took this right to them. Look, I will say, for Indiana, they're a totally different team, I think, in terms of defensively, the look that you can give them without Miles Turner. So they're a different look, but Cat was great. The Knicks, they took it to Indiana. They were able to control their ability to get out and run and space them out. Knicks were impressive. That's a tough environment for Indiana. I do like the Pacers a lot, but I think the Knicks clearly showed in that little 3-4, gap between those 2 teams. The Knicks they can take it to a place, I think, right now that Indiana would have a hard time replicating, even though the Pacers are dangerous.
Well, they have Josh Hart, 30 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, just an absolute monster. And then the last one I have for you here, just a quick hitter, but Ben Simmons signed with the Clippers. I could say they won the Ben Simmons sweepstakes. I don't know if that'd be appropriate, but Ben Simmons, looking for to reclaim his career. Interesting fit. They're great defensively. I'm curious how you think he's going to do out there. Come on, Legs. That's a good team. He's only asked to do certain things. They're already a good defense.
I'm sorry, man. I'm so past the point of getting excited about Ben Simmons joining any team. Go ahead. Do it. Show me.
All right.
I'll be the first one to give you credit when you play well. I got no agenda. But if you want me going into it to get all excited that Ben Simmons is going to play and be interested in playing and make a difference for them, hard to buy into, man. The guy's a specimen. We saw that early in his career, man. Something happened to him in the Atlanta series. For that last series he played in Philadelphia, and he's been completely just fried between the ears ever since. I don't know. This is one more opportunity for him. Maybe the last one. We'll see. If he plays well, I'll be the first one to give him credit.
James, it's Grizzlies Clippers tonight. If Ben Simmons goes off, we are leading the show with Tim Legler's apology directly to Ben Simmons if he goes off tonight against the Grizzlies, the number 2 seeded Grizzlies.
You got it.
Possible.
And listen, I will allow that. The converse of that is, if you see absolutely nothing out of him, if they turn the lights on in the arena and he runs behind the bench and cowers. Okay, I also want to hear that from you. So I apologize.
I just asked the question.
You asked it in an enthusiastic manner. You had an uptick in your voice. Your vocals went up a little bit, like you were excited. So it's the tone of the question, not just what you said.
I was a little too excited. My apologies, everyone. A little too excited to ask the question. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, we're going to talk about Luka Doncic can be traded. Anyone can be traded, but there are some superstar teams who have been the cornerstone of their franchise for several years who might be on the move, and we'll talk about the storyline around each of those guys on the other side. First, when the game tips off, the NBA action is just beginning on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because FanDuel is your home for NBA live betting. So even if you miss the first few minutes of the game and want to bet on the fourth quarter comeback, you can make your picks with the first whistle until the final buzzer. Plus, you can even combine your live bets onto a same game parlay for a longer shot at a bigger payout. However you want to play, now is the perfect time to join. New FanDuel customers can get started with $150 in bonus bets if you bet your first $5 bet and get a win. By the way, last night we talk about betting in the middle of the games. The Bulls are down 41 points at the half, so you could bet on the live line. Are they going to win but lose by more than 41? Might be the only way to make that game interesting. Just visit FanDuel.com/AllNBA. That's FanDuel.com/ALLNBA for a shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Must be 21 or older and present in select states. For Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Also want to tell you guys about Shady Rays. Get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. They have great deals here. And not only that, you can get your 35% off when you use the promo code AC35. But what I do, because I like them so much and they have so many great offers and they have so many different styles, I have a couple different pairs in my car, one in my backpack, one here in my home right by the key check. So if I'm going out for a walk or something, I got Shady Rays all around the house so that I never have to remember or go looking for them. I just know that they're at the spots where I use my sunglasses the most. They have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair. I go Navigators and Aviators. That's my style. That's what I like to wear. But they got every single type of sunglass you're going to want to watch. And exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use that code AC35 for 35% off of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades, rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. All right, back here, All NBA Show Segment 2. Make sure you throw us a like. We appreciate it. It helps us grow the show. Also, hit that subscribe button so you never miss the content. I'm going to be with Mark Stein. We'll have a Mark Stein mini pod up over the weekend, so you're not going to want to miss that. But Legs, all right, so Luka Doncic gets traded. So anybody's fair game. I don't know if there was any player less tradable than Luka Doncic, and he got moved. And we might be in the era right now of teams looking at their superstar, giving it a run, and if it doesn't work, moving on. So I made a list of players that I think qualify as cornerstone pieces or superstars that could potentially be on the move. And the first one, to me, seems the most likely, and that's Zion Williamson. #1 pick, one of the most dominant players in the NBA when healthy, but questions about his ability to stay healthy. Like Luka, hey, is he motivated enough? At least that was Nico Harrison's concern. You certainly could have that with Zion Williamson. And then also you just look at the Pelicans and say, which direction are they going? Do you keep investing more years, or is it healthier for all parties to try to depart? So Zion Williamson, could he be traded? Would you trade him if you were in charge of the Pelicans? And if he is traded, do you think that he could have a resurgence?
I think if I were the Pelicans, I would entertain that, and I would make it known around the league to teams that I'm willing to listen. I would have a hard time buying into that from an organizational standpoint, bringing him in, because it's at the point you start to get to a point where you have to base your view of him in reality, not like, hey man, if all the time with these ifs. This is his third year out of the 5 seasons he's played. He's played 24 games, 1 year, 29, another at 17 this year. 61 and 70 in the other 2 years when he was relatively healthy. He missed 21 games. Yeah. Healthiest year, he missed 12. Other games, you know the numbers. It's just gets to the point where you don't expect it anymore. So look, there are teams that would be interested in his brand. He's very entertaining. He can be dominant. I mean, if he ever could play 75 games, would do that for 5 or 6 years. No telling what he'd be capable, because he's so unique. There's only one of you. There's only one in the whole league. Yep. Zion Williamson is one of one. The way that he attacks you specifically with that combination of power and athleticism,
and touch,
all of that, and his finishing ability. You're right, but you just so rarely see it. That's a very hard sell to me if I'm an organization and I get that call from New Orleans. Like, what do you give up? What do you want to give up to bank on getting that next 3 or 4 years of health out of Zion Williamson? I just think it becomes difficult to really buy into that. It doesn't seem realistic.
Yeah, the what you get back part is the hard part of this, because at the moment, no team is willing to mortgage the entire future, give up every asset to get Zion as good as he is. You're more betting on what he has been, which is inconsistent. So I think that part is very real. But the other part of that is, if you're New Orleans, how long and how consistently well does he have to play for you to trust him again? Because I think it'd have to be an entire season and postseason. If he was healthy and motivated and everything else and played that way, it would take that for you to go into the following season with at least a little bit of trust of like, okay, we're sticking with him. We're building around him. And even then, if you got one fully healthy run and playoff run, I still think in the back of your mind, you'd be, man, I just don't know. So that's why I say sometimes it expires with the player, the trust, the vibes, everything like that. And I would not be surprised at all. We know we've heard reports about them looking for him, but to me, it's the best interest of all parties to kind of move on. And Zion gets a fresh start. You don't feel like you have that trust broken and you have to do all this, this, and this. So to me, I think he's a guy that I would expect to be on a different team at some point in the next, year or so, year and a half.
Because the alternative is you keep him, hope he stays healthy. But even then, now look, Brandon Ingram's gone. CJ McCollum is absolutely nearing the end of his career. So what are you even if Zion were to stay and be healthy, and you build everything around him? This was a team that had great hope and great promise at one point, with a lot of talent at the top, the point, the wing, the power player, like all that stuff would check those boxes. You and I talked repeatedly how much we love their role players. And all of these different guys that make contributions offensively or defensively or both, they just feel like a shell of that now. The best they can hope for is Zion plays the rest of the year, doesn't have any setbacks, and he goes into next year and he gives you the first half of the season in the same boat. Number one, that's going to give you up till the trading deadline next year to see if he stays healthy, is he even a needle mover for the team? Like, what are we if Zion Williamson's our best player and everything's built around him and this is the roster we have? What is that? Is that a 500 team, a sub 500 team? Are they relevant at all in the West? And if he's got a body of health to end this year and the first half of next year through 40, 45 games, and they're not very good, that might be now things change. The conversation changes around him, around the league, where now somebody maybe does go and grab him. And the Pelicans realize this isn't going to be something that's ever going to be good. So now it is time to strip this down. But right now, I don't know that you'd get a lot of people interested because of what New Orleans would ask back for him.
The next one to me is interesting, and it's LaMelo Ball. And, here's the thought process, because he's a great player and he's still young, but they obviously just made some moves to reset the deck. They have a shot at a number 1 seed, a really good shot at it coming up this June. The thing I wonder about with them, if they get a Cooper Flag, maybe that resets things, because now you say, okay, LaMelo Ball, Cooper Flag, or whoever it is their top choice in the draft. If they get that pick, it feels like we have our 2 pieces. But if you fall somewhere outside that, you get the 4th or 5th pick, and you don't feel like you're getting a cornerstone guy or a running mate for LaMelo, to me, there would be a question of, What's our timeline? Has LaMelo, as great of a player as he is, we're still 3-4 years away. And is he going to build the culture here and be patient for all that and those types of things? So even though he's a great player right now, I think, and then by the way, as Bobby Marks pointed out on ESPN today in his article, it was a different ownership group that signed him, different front office that gave him the extension. Now you have new people in there and they might come in and say, hey, we want to start over. So LaMelo Ball to me is a guy that I don't think would get traded, but I do see a path where in the next 365 days, the Hornets could be at a point where they say, maybe this isn't the foundation we're looking for and we can get a lot for LaMelo right now.
Oh, I think that I agree with that. I know for me, I'm too tantalized by the talent. I don't like the way he plays some nights. He shoots too much. I think that's part of that's being on a bad team. I think with expectations, you put him in that scenario with a team that's competitive. His passing ability can make guys better. Right now, he has to walk that line, scorer, playmaker, and more nights than not, it falls on scorer. And that can turn your stomach a little bit watching it. I like his talent. I like Brandon Miller a lot. They've also had a ton of games missed between those two guys. I agree with you that you still look at it next year, but it all depends on the first half of next season. Yeah. But he right now in my mind, he's not in a situation like I feel with Zion or Embiid, where it's just like it's been going on forever. It feels like that's not the case necessarily with LaMelo Ball, and the talent level and the position he plays. I think a little bit longer leash with him in terms of let's see what this guy ultimately can be if we're a better team. That's not the case this year. If it's not the case the first half of next season, they may be looking at that.
You look at teams like for LaMelo, if you think it on the other side, if they were to move on and just, recoup young players or draft picks or something like that, if that was their strategy, you look at the type of teams they might be reaching out to. Portland, fits that. Utah fits that. Maybe you look at a team that's further along like Houston and that's the move they want to make. So, okay, he's our cornerstone star. Minnesota is another team out there. It's like they need offense. They have a lot of defense. Is that a move? And I just look at that and I go, if LaMelo was on Houston or Minnesota, as good as he is, would that elevate the way you thought of them? You lose some of your depth, some of your defense, but you put him alongside the superstars you have in place. I just don't know. I mean, I kind of want to see it, but LaMelo's never been in that situation, so I have no idea how it would look.
Oh man, I just there's something about him, and he has so much joy when he plays. I think the guy loves to play, and I think if you put him in a spot like you just mentioned, Houston or Minnesota, where right off the bat from the very first day, there's expectations.
Yeah, like
we're in this. I just think that's going to bring the best out of him. I really do. I might be wrong, man.
I love it.
And it's hard to judge guys sometimes when they're showing up every day to the arena and there's no expectation to win.
Yeah.
And what that does to a guy and the way that he goes about his business and plays, maybe his style isn't for everybody. I have a feeling if you put him in an environment, you put him alongside a guy that's got a dog in him, like an Anthony Edwards, he's playing alongside a guy like that. Maybe that brings out the best in him and they're playing for something. Same thing in Houston with Ime Udoka and the guys in that locker room, like their approach and their identity. That could be something that's really good because both of those teams could absolutely use that talent. So now it's like the combination of the two could be something really good, man. I'm still giving him the benefit of the doubt.
Another tough one. We just talked about him earlier, but the 76ers right now are looking at, okay, Embiid is over 30. He's hurt right now, needs a surgery. We've got Paul George, who has underwhelmed. Tyrese Maxey, who's taken a step back. You have to look at it and say, how long is this window open for? Probably 2-3 more years after this. Do you feel confident enough that you're going to get there, or do you try to move early? I don't know if Embiid has that kind of trade value right now, knowing that he has a surgery coming up, but he isn't former MVP. He was an MVP 1 year ago. So is he a guy that you could see the 76ers saying, we just don't see it. We got to start trading our good players now to reset the clock and try to make sure we don't get stuck in a position where we lose and have no assets?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely an incredible amount of frustration, exasperation in Philadelphia. It's like, and look, you didn't, by the way, go out and get like some 35-year-old head coach, with his first rodeo, and you're willing to ride this out with this guy. This is Nick Nurse, man. You brought him in because you thought he could be the difference maker in winning a championship. He's a championship coach. You've got veteran players. You've got massive talent at the top. Maybe he's the guy then. That's why you go and get Nick Nurse. And if you're in this mindset where these guys are hurt all the time, not meshing, the whole thing is just a downer. I definitely feel that's how the Sixers feel about Embiid. I agree with you. I mean, if some team wants to try to steal him right now, go ahead. But again, from a front office standpoint of Philly, you got to sell this to your fan base. Now, maybe it's an easier sell right now because they're fed up. And he's hurt himself a little bit with his cachet with the fans and some of the stuff he has said and missing time, and people get tired of him being on the floor all the time. He went down again last night, grabbing his elbow, and you don't know if he's going to leave for an extended period of time. It's like they're tired of it.
Yeah.
And so maybe now there would be a little bit more grace given to the organization if they made a move like that. I just don't know really, honestly, what that would bear, the return for him. As crazy as that sounds as an MVP with that level
Big
of talent,
though.
he looks like he is absolutely playing at about 70% capacity with his physical ability.
Yeah.
So is that going to get better? Probably not.
Yeah.
This is going to be something, I think it's going to be an ongoing thing with him each and every season he plays the rest of his career, most likely.
I even could see, a move like the Lakers, not now, maybe a year from now, maybe a year and a half, where it's like, hey, we got LeBron, he's on his last legs. Let's get one push. We don't need to worry about 4 years. We got Luka for that. We give us Embiid for one run and see if it works.
Hey, what's funny about this though? Think what we're saying. What these teams need to be able to trade these guys is have them show up and play every night and be healthy. But the problem with that is when they do that, now the teams are like, oh, we can't trade this guy.
We can't trade this guy.
So that's the catch-22 for the organizations. Like they can't trade them unless they show that they're right.
Yeah.
But if they show that they're right, then they really don't want to trade them. So that's the tough spot that Zion and Embiid and guys like that put teams in.
Well, one last guy for you, because we got to keep it moving and we got to wrap up here. But Trae Young is an interesting one to me. He's been great this year. He's a phenomenal player. But where are the Atlanta Hawks going? I know Jalen Johnson's out. When he was there, I was very into them, but I wasn't into them as contenders. They feel far away from that. So I could foresee a world where Atlanta says, you know what, Trae Young still has value. He's a good player, but we're just not on a timeline. We're going to reset and try to build around Jalen Johnson. Could you see that happening? And is that something that you think Atlanta should entertain?
Oh, man, it's a tough one. I actually, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Trae Young, I've not always been necessarily like my cup of tea sometimes watching him. Defensively doesn't give you a whole lot. Smaller guards that shoot a lot. It's tough to win if that's your formula. But I like the way he played this year for the most part. I really have. And they do have some other younger talent on the team. I don't know the Jalen Johnson yet. I'm not ready to take that leap that Jalen Johnson is that. He's the cornerstone. Yeah, I mean, that's a totally different conversation, particularly when Trae Young is still really good late in games. He's very entertaining. The fan base identifies with him. They love Trae Young. He's their guy. You better be ready to hand that off to somebody ready to take that mantle. And I'm not sure if I can go there yet with Jalen Johnson. I really like him. I love his potential. I love his upside. But that's not necessarily being the best player on your roster. Yeah. What does that look like? And it's kind of like what I felt about Scotty Barnes in Toronto. Like, what ultimately is that really, really good player, really good all-around player? But that's a different thing. Putting the ball in your hands and saying, just go drive this thing and everybody plays off of you. I don't know if Jalen Johnson, if I'm ready to say that about him. So I kind of like Trae Young. I like this team where they are. And they're a team, again, I think they would be a really fun and dangerous 7-round series, like a first round 7-game series for one of those top teams.
Well, I mean, even a team like Houston, we keep throwing them out there, but Fred VanVleet, undersized guy, better defender, does a lot of things positive on the defensive end, but smaller guy that's led them. They're kind of similar in style. Trae's better, and they have an enormous amount of athleticism and defense, that they surround him with. So maybe that's a place that looks at that and says, hey, maybe he would be good here. I don't know. But to me, I like Trae Young. I think it is probably a place that if I were Atlanta, I'd be comfortable now moving on because they have pieces to at least have a foundation. And if you can cash that in, I'd be willing to do it. Let's end the week here, as we always do, by giving some shout outs. This segment is presented by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/all-NBA. All right, for shout outs this week, Legs, who'd you go with?
You got to go Aaron Wiggins, man.
You got to.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, who saw this coming? And this, to me, really actually, for a team that's been as good as Oklahoma City, I didn't know if there was something that could happen that would make me go, oh, man, this is even more impressive. Like, they've already been so good. Their defense is incredible. But what Aaron Wiggins, and I'm trying to pull up his numbers right now. I'm just going to give you an idea of the heater that this guy's going on. So in his he's averaging 23 points a game in the month of February. All wins, 6-0, 58% from the field, just under 50% from the 3-point line with a lot of volume, 7 a game, 23 a game. The 3 games to end January, he scored a total of 15 points in 3 games. And then he goes 41, 13, 17, 18, 26, 24, all wins. Him giving them this level of like a ceiling as a scorer, because he's already a really good defender. He's a great role player. I really like him. But this is totally different now, man. My goodness. So now, in addition to dealing with Shea, Jalen Williams, who you and I have always wondered about, like, okay, man, that's your number 2. Is it there every night in the playoffs when you need it? And I'm not saying Aaron Wiggins is going to average 23 points a game in a playoff series, but the fact that he's even capable of finding this gear on any given night, he can give you 20 to 30 and had a 41-point game. Like, that to me, it really checks another box for Oklahoma City. It's not as dependent on Jalen Williams every night if you can get 15 to 20 out of Aaron Wiggins consistently. And right now, that's what he's doing. So for me, he gets the shout out, man. What a month he has had so far.
I wonder what you think about this, because Oklahoma City just seems to only have hits. They turn all of these guys or discover guys who can be turned into this caliber of player. And to me, it can't be a coincidence. Nobody drafts that well. Nobody makes trades that are that well. But every guy that comes in here turns into a player. And I'm just, what is it about it? Because I like Aaron Wiggins, but I wouldn't have expected him to have the run that you're talking about. And they just churn guy after guy out that does that.
Well, I'm going to go Mark Daigneault, man. That's listen, obviously Sam Presti. These guys do a great job identifying talent and guys that are going to fit into their system. But this is Daigneault, man. And more so even than like saying, okay, X's and O's offensively, this is how he's helping Aaron Wiggins. Man, I've been around all these teams. There's a couple I still haven't been around to get the vibe. Like Cleveland. I really want to do a Cleveland game. I haven't seen that up close yet, right? Most of these other teams I have, there is just a camaraderie amongst this group that brings the best out of all of these guys. They all feel so empowered. They're so connected to the guy next to them. They like playing together. They like hanging out together. Daigneault does help create that. Some of it is the individual temperament of players. Like you luck into that sometimes. You do your homework, but you don't know till you get the guy in your locker room. Is this a good dude every day? Is he in a good mood, upbeat? Like, some of that is just innate to the player, but some of it is this is what the only thing we're allowing in here. There is no option here. This is what we want every day. Positivity, enthusiasm, support each other, like each other, man. Get to know each other's kids' names, like stuff like that. Like that is what they've created there. A lot of that is Mark Daigneault. I just want to, people that haven't, and we know Oklahoma City's been really good. Do you know that this month, Adam, they are scoring 132 points a game, and this is the margin of victory for these 6 wins. 34 against Sacramento, like decent team. They beat the Bucks by 29. That's Milwaukee. Man. They beat Phoenix by 31. They beat Toronto by 12. That was actually a relatively close game. Memphis by 13 on the road, and then New Orleans by 36. That's their month of February.
Their close games were 12 and 13. Yeah. That's crazy.
They're steamrolling people, man. It's not even a fair fight. And now they've gotten deeper. Chet's back. So now you get Dagnall to have some time to play around with these different lineups and combinations he likes. But to me, the big story coming out of there right now has to be what's going on with Aaron Wiggins and the role he's on as a scorer. And if that continues the rest of the year where he's just in this kind of a groove, this confident, and he has 20-point playoff games at given times, nobody's beating this team.
The team's incredible. And at some point, you just have to say the numbers are what they are, man. They are beating everybody. Oh, they're inexperienced. Oh, this or that. They're beating everybody every single night, and they're doing it with a bunch of different guys who can contribute. My shout out this week is going to be one of my guys, Michael Porter Jr. My guys isn't a Nuggets player, not one of my personal guys, but Michael Porter Jr. because people don't know this, Legs. He just missed 2 games in a row with a hamstring tightness. It's the first games he has missed an injury in 2 years. A guy who's had 3 back surgeries, played 81 games last year. Only game he missed because of an equipment issue on the road. He didn't have the shoes that he needed, for some of his injuries. So he didn't miss any games to health last year. And then this year didn't miss any games to health till very recently. And this last week, he had 3 consecutive 30-point games. He goes for 36, 39, and 30. Here's a crazy stat for you, Legs. Since Jokic arrived in Denver, no player has done that besides him. 3 straight 30-point games. The only other player who did it was in the postseason in the bubble. Jamal Murray had 2 50-point games and a 36-point game in between it. So he did it in the postseason in the bubble. But outside of that, no other player had 3 consecutive 30-point games in his 10 seasons until Michael Porter did it last week. So he played great. He shot unbelievably well. 59% from 3 on 10 attempts per game over those. And then 4 offensive rebounds, like a very rare combination of 3-point shooting and offensive rebounding from him. Played great. And the Nuggets are on a 7-game win streak.
Hey, man, I texted you the other night, in fact, when he wasn't playing. And I was like, what's up with Michael Porter? Because I'm just not used to ever seeing the guy out. I was like, what's going on? He's on this incredible roll, and he's not playing. I'm like, what is going on? Yeah, good, man. Good shout out. Good props to him. That's a pretty sick number you've given on the only guy to do something like that alongside Jokic, man. Impressive getting him going at this time of the year. He's going to get this break. Hopefully he can pick that right up when he's back out there after the break and continues to roll, because if Michael Porter Jr., obviously he's not going to be getting 30 a night in the playoffs, but if Michael Porter Jr., is consistently at 20, that's a normal night for him in the postseason, then you start to look at Denver differently too. Like that is the team that you would look at and say, okay, man, who's really going to challenge OKC? If Michael Porter Jr. is filling it up and he's confident going into the playoffs, that would probably be the team we're going to look at.
All right, let's get to some super chats. We got to get Legs out of here, but we think we got a couple super chats in. What do we got, James? First one comes from Christophs. He says, Adam, I always knew you hated Jokic.
Unbelievable.
True, guilty as charged.
It really is, man. Luka and Jokic, like our 2 least favorite players.
We hate them. What else we got? Mike, but no Ike. It says, Legs, any Nuggets TV games coming up for you? Also, how do the TV games get decided? People need to witness Jokic and the play style. Hashtag Pickett propaganda. I told you, man, this new guy, Jalen Pickett, I'm excited for you to see. Actually, probably I'll never see him. He'll play one more game and be out the rotation, but
I do. I think I have one more Denver game on the schedule for me. I don't know when exactly that is. Do you know the date? I think, but there's a couple of games that are on my schedule right now that potentially could be flexed out because one of the teams ended up being disappointing. I don't think it's that. I don't think it's Denver. They don't play New Orleans, do they? I don't remember they play that game.
Well, actually, you know what it is? It's March 7th against Phoenix, I believe. I think that's the game. And yes, that one could get flexed, absolutely, depending on what happens.
So that's to answer the question about the TV games. I mean, they try to find the best matchups on paper. These things have to be decided way out ahead of time, obviously. It's not something you do last second, but teams take a turn for the worse. They will make some changes. I've already had, I think, 3 or 4 games changed this year since January 1st because one of the teams just isn't that interesting anymore. And, you this is what you end up with. So that's how they decide it. And then you keep your fingers crossed that teams have guys healthy, and that's what the matchup ends up being.
What's the next one we got here, James? Cedric says, Tim, for you, who will be the 2 seed in the West for the playoffs? Ooh, you got to call it now?
Let me take a look what we got going on here. I would probably say
up on Denver. Lakers are right there too. It's Grizzlies, Nuggets, Lakers, Rockets. That's really your only option.
It's either the Grizzlies or Denver.
Okay. Grizzlies.
And that's if I had to, you force me to pick, I'd probably pick the Nuggets.
There you go. Let's go. Hope you're right on that one. What else we got? I think Psycho Blue had one, didn't he, or did he not? Is that it, James?
That's all we have right now. We do have a couple new job options for legs that were suggested.
Can I hear him? Let's see. Trade Nico for legs. There you go. Try to get Mavs GM. I've seen enough Tim Legler needs to coach the Wizards. Man, I don't know if that's a gift. I don't know what that one is.
Just saying there's options out there for you, legs.
Yeah, you sit there sometimes and you think about things like this, and I'm like, man, somebody coming to you with something like that, you're like, man,
you got to take it.
And look, along those lines, I'll finish with this, and then I'll get a run. We talked to Will Hardy before the game on Monday, and I'm like, this guy, he's one of the bright young minds in the game, and that's why they grabbed him up, and everybody knows that. And look what the situation he's in, man. He's got some veteran guys like Colin Sexton and John Collins, and you got marketing trying to put up numbers, but they're not trying to win. The organization's made it clear. It's all about the future. So he's got all these young guys he's got to run there every night. And you got this guy that's a young guy, man. He wants to win. And they're not even trying to win. That's a tough position to be in, man, for a young coach.
Yeah, it's brutal. Guys, thanks for hanging out with us. Legs is on the call tonight for that Warriors-Mavs game. I'm sure we'll be talking about that game tomorrow, but there's a good slate tonight, so we should have plenty of games that give us some fodder for great conversation. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe button. We'll be tomorrow, 1 o'clock Eastern tomorrow. We'll see you guys over there.
Silly like the mayor.